Martin Gruenburg, Chairman of the FDIC at the 2014 NCRC Annual Conference. Martin Gruenburg is the 20th Chairman of the FDIC and received Senate confirmation in November of 2012 for a 5-year term. He served as Vice Chairman and member of the FDIC Board of Directors from 2005 until his confirmation as Chairman. He also previously served as Acting Chairman. Chairman Gruenburg joined the FDIC Board after broad congressional experience in the financial services and regulatory arenas. He served as Senior Counsel to Senator Paul S. Sarbanes on the staff of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. He advised the Senator on issues of domestic and international financial regulation, monetary policy, and trade. He also served as Staff Director of the Banking Subcommittee on International Finance and Monetary Policy. Major legislation in which he played an active role during his service on the committee includes the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation Improvement Act of 1991, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. He also served as Chairman of the Executive Council and President of the International Association of Deposit Insurers. Chairman Gruenburg has an exceptional sensitivity to CRA and to fair lending matters, and this was clear day one and is clear today. He's an ally, he's a friend to our communities and to consumers, and we're very pleased that he has risen to become chairman of the FDIC. He's open, he's accessible to community organizations like ours, and he's truly a public servant. So it's my honor and pleasure to present to you the chairman of the FDIC, Martin Gruenburg.
Those lights are bright. I have to. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to see you. It's always good to be with friends, if I may say. And I'd like to thank Robert Dickerson for that very kind and generous introduction. I'm very appreciative. As you may know, I've had a long-standing relationship with NCRC. I was just asking John Taylor, when was the first time we met? I think it may have been around the time NCRC was started, which is now over 20 years ago. So it's really been over a generation now that NCRC has been fighting for access to credit on fair and responsible terms for everybody in this country. And I thought I might start, frankly, by commending you for the work that you do. You've really, over time, and I really place a value on sticking with things. You know, it's not just what you do today or this year, but it's really staying with it over a period of time that really enables change to come about. And I think NCRC, in some sense, has now stood the test of time and is staying the test of time. And I wanted to acknowledge you for that. You know, if I may say, another institution that stood the test of time is the FDIC. We actually celebrated the 80th anniversary of the FDIC last year. The FDIC was established by the Banking Act of 1933. Law was signed by President Roosevelt in June. We opened our doors in September of 1933. You know, at the time, the banking system in the United States had virtually collapsed, as you may know. In fact, when President Roosevelt was inaugurated in March of 33. On the same day he was inaugurated, one of his first acts as president was to declare a banking holiday, closed all the banks in the United States, and then sent examiners around to determine their solvency and then reopen them one by one in an effort to reestablish public confidence in the banking system. And one of the, at the time, radical measures adopted, this is hard to believe, but one of the radical measures adopted to try to restore public confidence in the banking system was this untested idea of national deposit insurance. It had actually never been done in any other country in the world. It was the first system. And at the time, you know, there was no big studies that were done. There was none of the things that might normally go into that kind of dramatic action. It was really the demands of the time that brought it about. But in retrospect, it was one of the key measures to restore public confidence in the banking system and get the economy working again. And the reason I go through that history is that it goes back to what I view as one of the core missions of the FDIC, which is to give people a sense of security and willingness to participate in the banking system of the United States and to participate in an effective way in our economy. And it is hard to do that. It is hard to be an effective participant in our economy without having a real relationship with an insured depository institution. To have a safe place where you can put your savings, do your checking, and get access to credit products on reasonable and responsible terms. And the fact is, as you may well know, that there are millions of households in the United States that either have no account relationship with an insured financial institution, or even if there's someone in the household with an account, they're still utilizing the so-called fringe financial service providers, the payday lenders, the check cashers, and so on. And so for me, this issue of access to the banking system of the United States is really at the heart of what the FDIC is about, and has really been now for a number of years one of our key priorities, to expand access to the banking system for everybody who lives in the United States. And so what I wanted to do today was spend a little time talking about the problem and some of the things the FDIC has been trying to do to respond to it. So I wanted to sort of divide my talk into 4 parts. I want to talk about the dimensions of the problem, which has really been defined by the first survey ever done by the Census Bureau in partnership with the FDIC as to who's unbanked and underbanked in the United States. That defines the dimensions of the problem, and then talk about 3 areas we focused on to try to respond to it. 1, developing model transaction accounts that actually are appropriate for the needs of people who have lacked access to the system. Talk about the potential of mobile banking to expand access to the banking system, an issue that's received a lot of attention in other countries around the world, relatively little attention in the United States. And then I also want to talk about financial education, which is not a cure-all, but certainly helps in giving people the knowledge and understanding and the tools to manage their finances in an effective way. So if I may, let me start with the survey. You know, until we undertook this survey, there had never been reliable national data on who's unbanked and underbanked in the United States. There were some smaller surveys that had been done, but no true national survey of a size and dimension to get a real handle on the issue. And back in 2009, we found out that the FDIC has the ability to actually partner with the Census Bureau. We designed the survey, and then the Census Bureau actually implements it. And that's an enormous resource. And part of the appeal of working with the Census Bureau is they then will do the survey every 2 years. So not only do we get a snapshot of who's unbanked or underbanked, but we then are able to monitor the change over time. So we really are now developing a data source over time to get a sense of the dimensions of the issue. We did the first survey in 2009, released it in 2010, did the second survey in 2011, released it in 2012. The third survey was done last year, and we will release the results of that survey later this year. But let me give you, if I may, just the highlights, the headlines, as it were, of the most recent survey, because it's, I think it's enlightening. And I should point out, this survey not only gives us national data, we're able to break it down by region, by state, and by top 20 metropolitan areas. And the results of this survey and all the data behind it are on the FDIC's website. So for any of your communities, you can go to our website, access that survey, and not only find the national data, but find it for your region, for your state, and for the 20 largest metro areas, for your metropolitan area as well. For this group in particular, that strikes me as a useful resource to have. Let me tell you the highlights of the survey. And the first two surveys were quite consistent on these overall numbers. First of all, this most recent survey found that over 8% of households in the United States have no account relationship with an insured financial institution. The survey also found that an additional 20%, so that's over 8% are unbanked entirely. The survey also found that around 20% of households are what the survey defines as underbanked. And as I indicated previously, that definition is someone in the household may have an account with a bank, but they're also utilizing the fringe financial service provider. So taken together, about 28% of households in the United States are either unbanked or underbanked, as defined in the most recent census survey. But if you go below the aggregate number and look at some of the demographic breakdowns, the numbers are even more striking. For lower income households, which are defined as households with income under $30,000 a year, over 40% were unbanked or underbanked. For Hispanic households, almost 50% were unbanked or underbanked. For African American households, over 55% were unbanked or underbanked. So this is an issue of significance, of consequence, because in many ways, after having a job, having access to an insured financial institution, to basic banking services, to credit products, is really a starting point for economic citizenship. And for people who are outside of the banking mainstream, who have to rely on the fringe financial service providers, it's both higher cost and higher risk. So the challenge of expanding access to insured financial institutions, where you can have your savings and checking account guaranteed. And you have access to credit products that are subject at least to basic consumer protection requirements, to me, is really a threshold issue. So I wanted to establish that as sort of the baseline for this discussion. And now let me talk about some of the things we at the FDIC have been doing to try to respond to it. First of all, coming up with a transaction account that's really responsive to the needs of the unbanked and underbanked is a real challenge. You know, the survey asked, the census survey asked people about, for the unbanked population, about half had never had a bank account, the other half previously had an account but no longer had an account. So the survey asked the group that previously had an account but don't anymore, why? Why don't you have a bank account anymore? The most common answer, not very surprising, is they didn't think they had enough money to justify having an account. But the close second was the minimum balance requirements and fees associated with maintaining an account at an insured financial institution. So that was obviously a useful insight to see if we could come up with a model of an account that would address those issues but would still be economically viable for financial institutions to offer. And the model we developed is really based off of, it is an account-based debit card model. And the advantage of that is twofold. An account-based debit card gives the customer a full account relationship with a bank so that they can go to an ATM, they can engage in point-of-sale transactions, they can walk into a branch of a bank and present themselves as an account holder of that institution to gain access to credit products offered by the bank. It really is a full account relationship, but by making it a debit card, meaning it's not required to offer checks as part of the account, it takes away one of the significant cost factors for the financial institution to offer the account. So we really thought that this model really holds a lot of promise and sense for threading a needle to allow the financial institution to offer an account that would be responsive to the needs of those who are unbanked and underbanked while still being economic for the institution to offer. And the criteria established by the model account are low balances, low fees, no overdraft fees. Those are the conditions for the account. We released that model transaction account, engaged with a number of institutions in regard to it, and I can tell you today that there are money center banks, regional banks, community banks that are offering account-based debit cards consistent with the model transaction account standards that we've established, and we think there's really a significant potential for expanding the availability of this kind of basic card product to large numbers of people today in the United States who do not have an account relationship with an insured financial institution. So this is something we are really going to stay with. I talked about staying with it over time. This is something we are really going to stay with because we really believe there's a lot of potential. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about is this issue of the potential of mobile banking to expand access to insured financial institutions. And I'll tell you, there's a certain tantalizing quality to this. You know, surveys have found that the same groups within our country who are overrepresented among the unbanked and underbanked, the same groups that are overrepresented among the unbanked and underbanked are also overrepresented relative to the general population in the utilization of mobile phones. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out, right? The potential there to use mobile phone technology as a vehicle for reaching people who today are outside of the banking system, you know, clearly has significant appeal. You know, there may not be a branch or a convenient branch in the neighborhood. The household may not have a computer to gain internet access to a financial institution, but chances are the household has a mobile phone. So to the extent that mobile phone can become a point of access, clearly has some appeal. One of the advantages that the non-bank, the fringe providers have over the banks is a lot of times they're more conveniently located, their office hours are longer, the environment within the storefront in some ways may be less off-putting to people from the neighborhood. That's an advantage for the non-bank, for the fringe providers. If you can provide access through a mobile phone, there's a chance and sense to jump over all of that and really provide a way for insured financial institutions to reach a lot of people that they're currently not able to reach. Now, I say this is tantalizing, but it's also challenging. There are clearly issues relating to the security of information, relying on mobile phones, to privacy issues relating to mobile phones. So I don't mean to get carried away with it. I think we have to be careful about this, but the potential is there. And what's striking is this is a big issue in other parts of the world. In Asia, Africa, Latin America, the potential of mobile phones to expand access to financial systems has really been a subject of national attention. In the US, for whatever reason, not so much. So we really want to take a look at the potential of using this technology not only to provide mobile banking services generally, but particularly strategically as a potential path to expand access to account relationships with insured financial institutions. So the FDIC is undertaking a study, and there are three key issues we're going to be looking to evaluate. One is the access issue. Can we really develop an ability to reach people through mobile phones in a way that's secure for the system and secure for the individual? Second, we want to look at sustainability. Even if you're able to establish the initial relationship, can you maintain it over time? Getting started but not being able to keep it going, in some sense, defeats the purpose. And third, we want to look at the potential for growth, meaning once you establish the relationship through the mobile phone and the services that are most easily accessible through the phone, is there opportunity for growth and deepening the relationship with the financial institution, including credit products. That's really the framework of the research project we've put before ourselves. We're going to be working on it over the course of this year, and we'll be releasing it when the work is done. But I think this is a significant issue for us to get a better handle on. I think there is a potential. We'll really see what the possibilities are, but it hasn't, at least my sense is thus far, it hasn't received the attention it deserves here in the States, and we really want to examine what the possibilities are. And then finally, let me talk about financial education and what we're doing in that area. This has been a big issue for the FDIC for a long time. You know, our Money Smart program, some of you may be familiar with it, I think is one of the more highly regarded financial education programs. It's being utilized all over the country. It's been translated into 9 languages. In addition to the basic program that's been developed, we've developed a Money Smart program for senior citizens. We did that in conjunction with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We developed a Money Smart program for small business owners. What we're looking at focusing on now, in particular, is K through 12 education. And we want to incorporate into the Money Smart program the so-called core standards that are being utilized in school systems around the country. And we actually want to develop 3 products targeted on K through 12 students. 1 product for the students themselves to use, a second product for the teachers to utilize in terms of teaching the information to the students, and then a 3rd product for the parents to assist their children. It is a mystery to me. I do not understand how this elementary and secondary education in the United States has not focused attention and priority on financial education. I mean, when you know, for students graduating high school, they're either going to go to college or they're not going to go to college. In either case, they better know something about finances. If you're not going to college, then you better have some understanding of what you're going to confront in the workforce. And not just today and tomorrow, and not just a savings and checking account. But what are insurance products? What is the idea of a pension? It's not just the issues of today, it's the issues that you're going to have to confront over the course of your life. And for students who are going on to college, be careful. There are a lot of people out there, whether it's student lending or credit card companies, that really see this college students as frankly a target of opportunity. And the ability for college students to be prepared to manage financial issues starts as soon as they show up on campus. So this preparing our young people to deal with this issue seems to me to be a threshold. So we really want to focus on it. Has been a focus of attention, but we particularly want to see what we can do in regard to the K through 12 program. We're going to be looking to partner with schools and school systems in a number of places around the country to pilot test the program and then hopefully expand it significantly from there. So that's sort of my story for this afternoon. I should, of course, close by saying that CRA has a real role to play here. Clearly, in many ways, the services test of CRA arguably has been underutilized in this area. I think there's a potential to use it more effectively. The banking agencies are looking at the services test, and I think we're going to be developing guidance to find ways to expand its effectiveness, particularly in this area of access to the banking system. So that's my 2 cents for this afternoon.